Okay, now I've got my background painted blue. I'm going to go ahead and paint my tablecloth, the background of it, yellow. So I'm going to go ahead and use clean water. I'm going to clean my brush out, and I'm going to use the same technique, wet on wet. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wet the background. I'm going to be really careful up in here because this blue is still wet, so I'm going to leave a little bit of an edge. I'm not going to go all the way up here because then it would spread. And then I'm just going to wet all of this background, and then I will add my watercolor. I want to go ahead and wet my paint. I can add, and then I'm going to pull it over to the side. I don't want this to be really intense either, so I'm going to kind of pull out some water. I could actually even use this yellow in my watercolor, or my water bucket right here, and it's going to still give me a good color. If I want it to be a little bit more intense, I just go in and I add straight from my paint palette. And then I'm just filling in all of the space. Doesn't take very long. You can see how the paint spreads because we're using wet on wet technique. It doesn't make really hard lines when you do this, but it's really good for covering a large space. You can also use it if you'd want to mix color on paper. That's a fun thing to explore. Maybe we'll do that now. I could add a little bit of orange. I want to be really careful if I don't, by not adding too much too quickly, because you can always build color. It's harder to take it away. So I could just take some orange and I could just add it to the yellow and kind of see what happens. It's fun to see how the colors intermix. And you can just kind of play around with this. You could go back and forth between the yellow and the orange and kind of see how they mix together on the paper. It kind of looks like a tie-dye. It's really fun. So I'm just going to kind of go all the way through. I might even go back and just add a little bit of water to help the colors kind of blend together and interact with each other. And once I'm finished, just clean off my brush. And I'm going to let my paper dry now so that I can go in and add some other colors back here. You could use a blow dryer to speed up the drying process, but you want to use an attachment that keeps the air from actually blowing. It's just putting out heat. If you want to do that, you could. If you don't have a blow dryer, or you would prefer just to wait, you can just set your project aside and come back once the background is completely dry. Okay, so for the base, I'm going to use the same technique, wet on wet, but I'm going to do every other line a different color. So I'm just going to do half of them right now, every other one, and then I'm going to let that dry and I'll come back and do the other. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wet every other stripe. Then I'm going to add a color. I'm going to use a blue greenish color that I've kind of already pre-mixed over here. Again, I don't want it to be super intense, so I added water to dilute it a bit. And I'm going to go ahead and let that dry, and then I'll come back and I'll do the other three. Okay, now that these three are dry, I'm going to go ahead and add my next color. You could also just do a little bit of a white border so that the colors don't blend or bleed into each other if they're still a little bit wet. So I'm doing wet on wet again, and then this time I think I'm going to use a little bit of a purpley color, purpley blue. Again, I pulled the color out over here and I've added a little bit of blue to it, and I add a lot of water so it's diluting and it's not overly intense. There, and I add it to my paper. Watercolor goes a really long way. You don't need to use too much of it. You really let the water move the paint around the paper. So once I'm finished, I rinse my brush. And then I'm going to go ahead and go into the flowers. So I can just kind of choose whatever color I want to do. I think I'm going to use some warmer tones because my background is a cool color, the blue. So maybe I'll start just by coloring in some of the centers of the flowers. I'm going to probably use yellow. This time I'm going to actually do wet on dry. So I'm leaving my paper dry this time. And I get the paint on my paintbrush, and then I'm going to go in and paint. You can see how much more intense the color is when I do painting this way, and it also keeps a nice sharp edge. So I can kind of come over here again, put some paint on my paintbrush, and then I just move the paint around the paper. Okay, so now I'm going to go in and I'm going to color some smaller spaces. So I'm going to use a smaller paintbrush to help me get into those spaces. I'm going to use this one right here. This one is a round brush. Again, I go ahead and get my paintbrush wet, and then I'm going to get some paint on it and go ahead and color in the centers of the flowers. It doesn't take me very long. I don't need to use too much paste. And when I'm painting, I don't really rub the paper too much. That keeps the paper nice. If you overwork it, it starts to crumble. So you want to be careful with that as well. And there's a lot of paint on my paintbrush, so I don't really need to add more paint. Just kind of go in and fill in. I can even come back over here and get some more paint over on my paper and kind of move it to a new place on my painting. Don't need it to be too thick. And I can just go ahead and go add in the color here. This is a really strong, bold purple. It's really pretty. Working around. And when I'm holding my paintbrush, I'm holding it about 2/3 of the way from the paint bristles. This allows me to have some freedom when I'm painting. It gives me more expressive marks. Okay, my water is getting really dirty, so I'm going to go ahead and clean it. I might have some extra water here, so I'll just use that. Okay, so whenever I'm cleaning my paintbrush, I use one to get the paint off right away, and then I use another one that's a little bit cleaner, and then I can actually even use my cloth over here to get the extra paint out and double check. Okay, so I've got one purple flower. I think I'm going to do a red one. Again, I want to wet my paint, and then I can move it over to the side and dilute it as I need. So this is where I really am working the paint. I don't really want to push too hard in here because we don't want to get the paints all dirty, and we don't want to use too much paint. So now I'm ready. I can go up in here. You can see how it's actually still a little wet, so it's bleeding into that blue there. That's okay. I'm going to come in here, add some red. Now if I do make a mistake like that, you can take a paper towel or your cloth on a spot that's clean and kind of pull out that color. It won't ever go back to the way it was before, but it will pull out some of the color. So good tip to know. Okay, so I've got a purple, a red flower. I think this last flower back here, the last large one, will be orange. So I already have some orange paint pulled out. I can just go ahead and use that. I think I'm going to add a little bit more paint. And then I can go in and paint orange. Okay, so there. And I can go ahead and go in and touch up. So some of this stuff, I'd like it to be like the full, I don't want any white space in there. So I'm going to just kind of go in. And all I have to do is add a little bit of water and pull the color where I want it to go. Okay, and then I can use this clean water to just double check and make sure my brush is really clean. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to add I have these little buds in here, and I want those to be a bright green. So I'm going to take green, which I have it up here, and then I'm going to add some yellow to it to make more of a spring green, which is yellow green. You always need to use more of the lighter color than the dark, because the darker color will go further than the lighter color. So I'm going to go ahead and add this bright light green, yellow green, to the little buds that I have here. And I'm going to clean my brush and dry it off. Okay, again, I kind of smeared here, so I'm going to go in, kind of dab it out. Reapply. Look at these last few colors in here. Okay, and now I think I'm going to make my polka dots a red violet mix. So I'm going to pull a little bit of the purple into the red. Make a really pretty color here. Just kind of experiment with the colors. Okay. And so I have these little flowers. I think I want to paint them too. I could leave them white. They look nice white, but just for fun, I think I'm going to go ahead and paint them. I'm going to make them a really light color. I'm going to use the same color that I used down here, but I'm going to make it even lighter. And I just do that by adding more water. Okay, and then I can just kind of go in here and add a really soft reddish purple. Okay, and then from there I want to rinse my brush out, make sure it's good and clean, and then I can just set it to the side. Okay, once your artwork is dry, you'll know it's dry because if you kind of gently touch it, it will be room temperature and it's no longer shiny. You're going to go ahead and pull the tape off your artwork. You want to do that really gently, and then you'll want to sign your name. Great job today. I hope you enjoyed making flowers.